My dad kicked me out of the family FaceTime group. Everyone forgot I'm the one paying for the house. Okay, prepare yourself, because this is the story of how my own family taught me the most brutal lesson about boundaries, respect, and just how much I was willing to sacrifice for people who only saw me as an ATM with a pulse. It all started with a gut punch notification that flashed across my phone screen one ordinary Tuesday night. Gerald Walsh removed you from the group. I just stared at it, frozen. 3 years of mortgage payments, property taxes, endless repairs, and I wasn't even worth keeping in the family chat. Gone, just like that, as if I'd never existed. It was 11:47 p.m., I know, because I just wrapped up a soul-crushing quarterly report at my downtown Chicago office. Not a message, just that cold, automated notice. Gerald Walsh removed you from the group. No explanation, no apology. Nothing. My thumb hovered, but the damage was done. I quickly scrolled through the message history before it vanished completely. The last conversation? Thanksgiving plans. My mom, Maureen, had sent a picture of place settings, asking for opinions. My brother, Trevor, gave a thumbs up. My dad, Gerald, chimed in, "Looks perfect, hun. Can't wait for the whole family to be together." My own reply now felt like a joke. "Beautiful, Mom. I'll bring the wine. Also, the furnace inspector is coming Friday morning, so someone needs to be home." That message just sat there, unread, irrelevant. What they didn't seem to grasp, what they'd apparently forgotten in their cozy little bubble, was that every single one of those perfect place settings would be arranged on my dining table. The furnace keeping them warm through Chicago's brutal winters? My furnace. The roof over their heads? My roof. All maintained, all paid for by me, while they planned their idyllic family Thanksgiving. My name was on every mortgage document, locked away in my office safe. I carefully set my phone down on my desk, my hand steadier than it had any right to be. It was 3 years ago when my parents were days away from foreclosure. My dad's business had tanked, and they were losing everything. Trevor, at 28, was still living at home, oblivious. I stepped in, not out of blind obligation, but because I couldn't bear to see my parents lose their home. I restructured the loan, put the house in my name, and took over the payments. We're talking $2,800 a month for 36 months straight, plus property taxes, plus insurance, plus every single major repair. My dad had actually cried when I signed the papers, promising he'd pay me back once his real estate brokerage got back on its feet. My mom hugged me, calling me their savior. Trevor, ever the charmer, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're the best, sis." That was before they got comfortable. Before my monthly transfers became invisible. Before the mortgage payments I made from my analyst's salary became something they simply expected, like electricity or running water. I pulled up my banking app. 3 years of transactions, scrolling by. $2,800 on the first of every month, like clockwork. Never late, never missed. The total stared back at me, $100,800. And that didn't even include the $15,000 down payment I'd contributed to refinance. My office was dead quiet, 32 floors above the glittering Chicago skyline. I'd worked my ass off for these windows, for this corner office, for the salary that somehow made me invisible to my own family. 6 years at Morrison and Associates, climbing from junior analyst to senior financial analyst, specializing in distressed asset recovery. I fixed other people's financial disasters for a living. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed again, a different kind of buzz this time. Not the family chat, I was exiled from that. This was the separate thread, just with my mother, one she apparently kept for actual communication rather than family theater. "Audrey, honey, we need you to handle the property tax bill when it comes. Your father's been so busy with clients, he hasn't had time to look at the mail." Are you kidding me? No acknowledgement that I'd been removed from the family group. Just an assumption that I'd keep paying, keep fixing, keep being invisible until they needed something. I typed out 3 different furious responses, deleting each one. Finally, I just sent, "Noted." But I wasn't noting anything except the exact moment my family stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a payment system they could ignore. The very next morning, I drove out to the Oak Park house, arriving at 6:30 a.m. I knew my dad left for his office by 7 o'clock, and my mom wouldn't surface before 9 o'clock. Trevor's BMW, the one he'd bought with money he didn't spend on rent, sat in the driveway like a monument to his priorities. I let myself in with my key, my house, my key, my mortgage. The living room looked exactly as it had 3 weeks ago when I'd visited for Sunday dinner. Family photos lined the mantel. My graduation, Trevor's promotion party, my parents' anniversary. I was in some of them, sure, but in others, it was like I'd been strategically cropped out when they needed space for better compositions. I found what I was looking for in my father's home office. 3 years of unopened mail from the bank, all addressed to me at that address. Mortgage statements I'd never seen because I received electronic notifications, property tax assessments, insurance renewals, all in my name, all my responsibility, all completely ignored. I snapped photos of everything with my phone, methodical and thorough, the way I documented distressed assets at work. Then I went to the basement. More photos. The new water heater I'd paid to install last spring. The updated electrical panel from 2 summers ago. The foundation repair receipt, still in a folder on the utility shelf. Maureen, have you seen my blue tie? My father's voice echoed from upstairs. I froze, standing in my own basement like an intruder. Check the closet, my mother called back. Also, remind me to call Audrey about the tax bill. We need her to handle it before the holiday. Will do, my father replied. God knows what we'd do without her taking care of this stuff. The words should have felt like appreciation. Instead, they felt like an obituary for someone who died without anyone even noticing. I climbed the basement stairs carefully, locked the door behind me with my key, and drove straight to my downtown apartment, the modest one-bedroom I maintained because, according to my family, living in the house I owned would have been too weird. That afternoon at my desk, I opened a new file on my computer. Not for a client. For myself. Project title, Asset Recovery, Personal. Thanksgiving was 12 days away. I started documenting everything with the precision I usually reserved for corporate bankruptcies. Every family text message, every payment receipt, every casual dismissal, all logged into a spreadsheet that would have made my audit team proud. The family FaceTime group I'd been exiled from continued without me. I knew because my mother kept accidentally mentioning conversations I wasn't part of. Did you see what I sent in the group chat about the guest list? She asked during one of her individual check-ins, the ones she used when she needed something. I'm not in that group anymore, Mom. Dad removed me last week. A pause. Oh, that. Well, you know how your father is with technology. He probably hit the wrong button. An 11-day wrong button. Interesting technical glitch. My college roommate, Lisa, called that weekend. Your mom invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. She said you suggested it. I've been removed from the family planning chat, so no. But you're welcome to come if you want to witness something interesting. Audrey, that tone makes me nervous. What are you planning? Just a family dinner. Very traditional. What I didn't tell Lisa was that I'd spent the previous evening with my attorney, Patricia Hendress, reviewing property law in Illinois. What I'd learned was clarifying. The house was mine completely. My name on the deed, my credit on the mortgage, my liability if anything went wrong. My family? They were effectively tenants. Tenants I'd never asked for rent, never given formal notice, never established any legal agreement with. Technically, Patricia had said, adjusting her reading glasses, they're living there at your discretion. You could ask them to leave with 60 days' notice. What if I wanted to sell? It's your property. You can list it tomorrow if you want. They'd have to vacate once it's sold. I thanked her and paid her consultation fee with money I'd saved by not going out for 3 months. Every dollar mattered when you were invisibly funding other people's lives. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I drove to Oak Park and let myself into the house again. Empty. My father at his office, my mother at Pilates, Trevor at whatever sales job currently tolerated his minimal effort. I went room by room with my phone, filming everything. The furniture they'd bought with money they didn't spend on housing. The renovated kitchen I'd paid a contractor to update. The new carpet in Trevor's room, 31 years old and still living at home, rent-free. In my father's office, I found his laptop open, password saved. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. His email was a disaster of ignored bills and declined payment notices. But what caught my attention was a thread with my Uncle Raymond, my father's brother, who'd asked to borrow money last year. Can't help you, Ray. Between the mortgage and property taxes, we're stretched thin. You know how expensive this house is to maintain. My hand tightened on the mouse. Asterisk the mortgage he didn't pay. The property taxes I handled. The house I maintained. Asterisk another email. This one to a college friend. We're thinking of doing some work on the back deck next spring. It's looking dated. Maureen has her heart set on that composite decking. Expensive, but you know how it is. Happy wife, happy life. Asterisk composite decking on my house? With what money? Asterisk I forwarded both emails to myself and cleared the sent folder history. Then I kept searching. A text thread with Trevor from 2 months ago. Your sister's been weird lately. Distant. Maybe check on her. Trevor's response. She's always been weird, Dad. Too serious about everything. Besides, she makes good money. She's fine. The clinical detachment I had cultivated in my career wavered for just a moment. Then I screenshotted it and added it to my file. That evening, my mother called. Honey, we need to talk about the seating arrangement for Thursday. I'm putting you between Aunt Carol and Trevor. You don't mind, right? We're saving the head of the table for your father, and I want to be near the kitchen. The head of the table? In my house, what? Nothing, Mom. The seating sounds fine. Also, your father mentioned you seem stressed lately. Is everything okay at work? I looked at my laptop screen. The spreadsheet showing $100,800 in mortgage payments over 3 years. The forwarded emails revealing exactly how they talked about me when I wasn't around. Works great, actually. I just closed a major recovery case. We seized assets from a family business that had been operating on borrowed capital they never intended to repay. Very satisfying. That's nice, dear. So, Thursday at 2 o'clock and you're bringing wine. I'll bring something special. After she hung up, I finalized my Thanksgiving plans. Not the menu. That was my mother's domain in my house. No, I finalized something else entirely. I called a real estate photographer I'd worked with on property assessments. I need a full shoot done Friday morning. Professional listing photos, 4-bedroom colonial in Oak Park. Can you do it? Day after Thanksgiving, that's premium rate. Not a problem. Bill me whatever you need. Then I called Patricia. I want to list the house. How fast can we make this happen? If you're serious, I can have paperwork ready by Monday. But Audrey, this is your childhood home. Your family lives there. Have you thought through the implications? I've thought about nothing else for 12 days. They removed me from the family chat, Patricia. I'm not part of their family anymore, but I own their house. Fair enough. I'll draft the documentation. My phone buzzed with another family group message. Except I couldn't see it because I was still removed. But my mother's individual text followed. Your father wants to know if you can cover the heating bill this month. It's been so cold. I stared at that message for a long time. The heating bill for my house that I paid the mortgage on, while sitting in my cramped 1-bedroom apartment because living in the house I owned would be too weird. I replied, I'll take care of it. And I would. Just not the way they expected. The night before Thanksgiving, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves. I'd handled hostile corporate takeovers that would make most people's hands shake. But this was different. This was personal. At 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and wrote an email. Not to send, just to organize my thoughts. Asterisk, dear family, you removed me from your group chat. You forgot I pay your mortgage. You treat me like an ATM with a heartbeat. Tomorrow at Thanksgiving dinner, in my house, at my table, I'm going to remind you exactly who I am. Not your daughter. Not your sister. Your landlord. Asterisk, I saved it in drafts and finally fell asleep. Thanksgiving morning arrived, cold and bright. The kind of November day that makes Chicago suburbs look like a postcard. I dressed carefully, not the casual sweater my mother would expect, but a tailored black suit, the one I wore when I presented findings to hostile boards of directors. I loaded my car with 3 bottles of wine, a pie from the expensive bakery my family loved, and a leather portfolio containing documents they'd never seen. Documents with my name on them. Legal documents. Final documents. The drive to Oak Park took 25 minutes. When I pulled up, Trevor's BMW was already in the driveway, along with my parents' sedan and Uncle Raymond's truck. Aunt Carol's Lexus sat at the curb. The whole family gathered in my house for a holiday I was paying for. I sat in my car for a moment, watching through the windows as people moved around inside. My mother directing the placement of serving dishes. My father laughing at something, probably his own joke. Trevor glued to his phone, oblivious. None of them had texted me, "Good morning." None of them had asked if I needed help bringing things in. I was just expected to show up and play my role. I grabbed the wine, left the portfolio locked in my trunk for now, and walked up the front steps. My steps, my porch, my property taxes, paying for the decorative fall wreath on my door. "Audrey's here," my mother called out as I entered. She was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before. Probably 2 mortgage payments worth. "Oh, good. You brought wine. Put it in the kitchen, honey. We're running behind." Not hello. Not happy Thanksgiving. Just instructions. I set the bottles on the granite countertop I'd paid to install and surveyed the scene. The dining room table was set for 12, exactly as my mother had planned in the family chat I wasn't part of. My father's place at the head. My mother to his right. Trevor beside her. Me? Between Aunt Carol and my father's business partner, Doug. Probably so they could talk around me. "Audrey." Uncle Raymond approached with a hug. "Been too long, kiddo. Your dad was just telling me about the new deck plans, going to be gorgeous." The deck plans for my house that I knew nothing about. "Were you?" I looked at my father, who had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Just preliminary thoughts," he mumbled. "Nothing concrete." Asterisk preliminary thoughts about renovations to my property. Interesting. Asterisk the room got quiet. Uncle Raymond looked between us. "Your property?" My mother laughed. That high, tinkling sound she used when smoothing over awkward moments. "Audrey's just being technical." Yes, the house is in her name for tax reasons, but it's still the family home. Now, who wants appetizers? Tax reasons. That was the story they'd been telling people. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. "Uncle Raymond, you asked Dad for money last year, right? And he said he couldn't help because mortgage and property taxes were stretching them thin." Raymond's eyebrows rose. "Yeah, he mentioned the house was expensive to maintain." "Interesting, because I've paid every mortgage payment for 3 years. All $100,800 of them. Plus the $18,000 in property taxes. And the $6,000 in insurance. And roughly $12,000 in maintenance and repairs." I turned the phone screen toward my uncle, showing the spreadsheet. So, when Dad said he was stretched thin by the mortgage, what he meant was he was stretched thin by having to pay for literally everything else in his life, besides housing. My father's face went crimson. "Audrey, this isn't the time." "When is the time, Dad?" "When you're planning decks on my property without asking me. When you remove me from the family chat. When is it appropriate to discuss the fact that I've spent $136,800 on this house and you've spent zero?" Trevor stood up. "Jesus, Audrey, we get it. You paid the mortgage. You want a medal. You make good money. It's not like it's been a hardship." The thing about Trevor was that he'd always been able to say the exact wrong thing with perfect confidence. It was almost a talent. "You're right," I said calmly. "I make $95,000 a year. Good money, which I earned by working 60-hour weeks and taking professional development courses on weekends. Meanwhile, you make what, $60,000 in sales, and you live here rent-free, driving a BMW you financed at probably 18% interest. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" I felt something crack in the careful control I'd maintained for weeks. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in a marginal neighborhood because I can't afford anything better after paying for this house. I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I buy my clothes at outlet stores. I meal prep chicken and rice every Sunday because going out to eat is a luxury I can't justify. And you want to lecture me about fairness while you live in a house I own without paying a single dollar? Aunt Carol set down her wine glass. "Audrey, honey, maybe we should discuss this privately." "No." I was done with private discussions, with individual texts, with being excluded from the family chat while still being expected to fund the family home. Everyone here should know the truth. This house? Mine. The mortgage? Mine. The property taxes, the insurance, the new water heater, the electrical panel upgrade, the kitchen renovation? All mine. And last Tuesday, Dad removed me from the family FaceTime group. Apparently, I'm not part of this family anymore, but my money is still welcome. My mother was crying now. Soft tears that used to make me immediately apologize for causing upset, but I'd been to enough depositions to recognize tactical crying when I saw it. We never meant for you to feel unappreciated, she said. Of course, you're part of this family. The chat thing was an accident. An 11-day accident that nobody noticed because nobody messages me unless they need something. My father finally spoke, his voice hard. What exactly do you want, Audrey? You want us to grovel? To thank you every day for helping your own family? We raised you. We fed you, clothed you, put you through college. You co-signed my student loans, which I paid off by myself. And this isn't about gratitude. This is about respect. Basic respect. The kind that includes not making renovation plans for my property without consulting me. Not treating me like an ATM. Not removing me from family communication while still expecting me to pay family bills. Doug, my father's business partner, shifted uncomfortably. Gerald, maybe you and Audrey should talk alone. No, I repeated. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to eat Thanksgiving dinner at my table in my house. And then tomorrow a real estate photographer is coming to shoot listing photos. The house goes on the market Monday. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother's tears stopped abruptly. You're selling the house? Our home. My house. Your home was foreclosed on 3 years ago. This is my investment property that I've allowed you to occupy rent-free. That ends now. Trevor stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. You can't just kick us out. We have rights. Actually, you don't. I checked with my attorney. You have no lease, no rental agreement, no legal standing. I own this property outright, and I can sell it whenever I choose. The new owners will want you out. My father's face had gone from red to pale. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. The audacity of that statement would have been funny if it wasn't so perfectly encapsulating the problem. Repay you? Dad, I've given you $136,800. What have you given me besides a childhood, which was your legal obligation, not a favor I need to spend my adult life repaying? You've changed, my mother whispered. This corporate job has made you cold. Calculating. This isn't who we raised. No, I haven't changed. I just stopped being invisible. And you can't stand it. I picked up my purse. The pie was still on the counter, the wine unopened. Thanksgiving dinner would go on without me, just like the family chat did. Just like most of their lives did. The photographer comes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'd appreciate it if you could make the house presentable. Or don't. Either way, it's getting listed. I walked out of my house. Really walked out, not planning to come back, and sat in my car. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline flooding through me after holding it together inside. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text after text. Mom, please come back. We can talk about this. Trevor. This is psychotic. You're ruining Thanksgiving over a misunderstanding. Dad, call me now. I blocked the family chat I'd never been part of and drove back to my cramped apartment. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. The real estate photographer called at 8:45 a.m. on Black Friday. Miss Walsh, I'm outside the property. There's a family here refusing to let me in. They say you don't have authority to list the house. I was already dressed, having anticipated this exact scenario. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't leave. The drive to Oak Park felt different this time. Not weighted with obligation or resentment, just clear, clinical. The way I felt when recovering assets from businesses that had operated in bad faith. When I pulled up, my entire family was on the front porch. My father, arms crossed. My mother, still in her bathrobe. Trevor, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed. The photographer, a patient woman named Simone, stood by her equipment van, looking deeply uncomfortable. You can't do this, my father said as I approached. This is our home. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken weeks ago. This is my property. I have the deed, the mortgage documents, and the payment records. Now, step aside, or I'll call the police and have you removed for interfering with my legal business. You'd call the cops on your own family? Trevor's voice was incredulous. You removed me from the family chat. Apparently, I'm not family when it's convenient for you. Just when you need someone to pay bills. My mother tried a different approach. Honey, please, let's talk about this. Thanksgiving was emotional. We all said things we regret. Come inside. Let's sit down. I'm not coming inside. Simone is. She's going to photograph every room for the listing. You can stay and cooperate, or you can leave for a few hours. Your choice. My father's jaw clenched. We need time. You can't just sell the house out from under us with no warning. I gave you 3 years warning. Every month when I paid your mortgage. Every time I fixed something you broke. Every family dinner where you talked around me like I was furniture. I turned to Simone. How long do you need? 2 hours for a thorough shoot. You have 2 hours, I told my family. Be cooperative or be gone. My mother started crying again. But this time, I recognized it for what it was, manipulation that no longer worked. My father looked like he wanted to physically block the door, but Trevor grabbed his arm. Let her do it, Trevor said quietly. We'll figure something else out. That surprised me. Trevor, acknowledging defeat, wasn't in his usual playbook. They retreated inside while Simone and I did a walkthrough. She was professional enough not to comment on the family drama, but I saw her glance at me a few times. Messy divorce? She finally asked. Something like that. The photos took 90 minutes. Every room, every angle, every feature that would help sell my house for maximum value. The kitchen I'd renovated, the bathrooms I'd updated, the new furnace, the updated electrical, the roof I'd repaired. When Simone finished, my family had disappeared, probably to my uncle's house to strategize. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I deleted them all without reading. By Monday morning, the listing was live. Stunning 4-bedroom colonial in desirable Oak Park. Recent updates throughout. $495,000. My phone rang 30 seconds after it posted. My father. I answered on speaker. Yes. You listed it at $495,000. That's $15,000 over market value. No one will pay that. Then I'll lower it or not. It's my house. Audrey, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm recovering my investment. I've spent $136,800 on this property. After realtor fees and closing costs, I'll probably net $460,000. That means I'm still losing money on this deal. So, yes, I'm asking full market value. Where are we supposed to go? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Dad, you're 55 years old. You have a career. Mom works. Trevor has a job. You're all adults. Find an apartment. Sign a lease. Pay rent like normal people. You know we can't afford rent in Oak Park on our income. Then live somewhere cheaper. Like I do, because I can't afford Oak Park either after paying your mortgage for 3 years. Silence. Then, your mother is devastated. This is killing her. Good thing she has you and Trevor to support her emotionally, since I'm not in the family chat. I hung up. The first showing was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. By Tuesday morning, I'd received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer my father had hired. I forwarded it to Patricia, who called me 20 minutes later, laughing. This is the worst legal threat I've ever seen. They're claiming adverse possession, but they'd need 7 years of continuous occupation, and you have clear documentation of ownership throughout. They have no case, so you can proceed with the sale. Absolutely. I'll send a response telling them to pound sand. Professionally, of course. The showing started, 3 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday. The feedback was uniformly positive. Asterisk, great bones. Love the updates. Perfect family home. Asterisk, my father showed up to the 3rd showing. I was there with my realtor, Janet, when he walked in. Not scheduled. Not invited. Just there. This is my house, he told the potential buyers, a young couple with a baby. My daughter is having some kind of breakdown. This property isn't actually for sale. The couple looked confused. Janet looked furious. I looked at my father with the cold assessment I usually reserved for hostile witnesses. This man doesn't live here, I told the couple calmly. He's been occupying the property without a lease. I'm the legal owner. I pulled out my phone and showed them the deed. If you'd like, I can also call the police to remove him for trespassing. The couple left quickly. Janet turned on my father. If you interfere with another showing, I will pursue legal action for intentional interference with a business transaction. Are we clear? My father looked at me. Really looked at me. Maybe for the first time in years. You've become someone I don't recognize. No, I said. I've become someone you can't ignore. There's a difference. He left. The next showings went uninterrupted. On Friday, exactly 1 week after I'd listed the house, I received an offer. $490,000, all cash, 30-day closing. I accepted it immediately. The text messages started within an hour of accepting the offer. Asterisk Mom, please tell me you didn't accept an offer. Please, we need more time. Asterisk Trevor, there has to be another way. What if we paid you rent going forward? Asterisk Dad, call me. We need to discuss this like adults. Asterisk I responded only to Trevor. You had 3 years to offer rent. You chose not to. 30-day closing. You need to find somewhere to live. My phone rang immediately. Trevor. Audrey, come on. Where are we supposed to go in 30 days? The same places everyone else goes. Apartment listings, rental agencies, Craigslist. Do you know how much apartments rent for in this area? We can't afford that. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Then live somewhere cheaper. Join the rest of us who actually pay for our housing. This is insane. You're destroying the family over money. No, Trevor. You destroyed the family when you removed me from the chat while still expecting me to pay your bills. I'm just setting boundaries you should have respected 3 years ago. He hung up. My mother called next. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. He had to take medication. The stress of this is literally making him sick. He should see a doctor about that. Make sure he has good insurance. How can you be so cold? This is your family. I was sitting in my apartment, looking at my bank account. For the first time in 3 years, I was calculating what I could actually afford once the house sold. A better apartment. A vacation. Maybe even a car that wasn't 12 years old. Mom, answer me honestly. When Dad removed me from the family chat, did you notice? Silence. Did you? I pressed. There were so many messages. I didn't realize. It was 12 days before Thanksgiving. 12 days where you all communicated without me, made plans without me, and nobody thought to add me back or even mention it. But you noticed immediately when the property tax bill came. Funny how that works. We didn't mean to exclude you. Yes, you did. You just didn't mean for me to stop paying for things. That's different. She started crying. Real tears this time, I thought. Fear tears. Where are we supposed to go? We're too old to start over. You're 53. That's not old. And you're not starting over. You're just starting to pay for your own housing, like most adults do. We don't have savings. Your father's business barely breaks even. I work part-time. We can't afford a deposit and first month's rent. You have 30 days to figure it out. That's more notice than most people get. Could you at least help us with moving costs or a deposit? The audacity was stunning. No. But we're family. You removed me from the family. Remember? I hung up. That weekend, I drove past the house. There was a U-Haul in the driveway and boxes on the porch. They were moving. Actually moving. My phone buzzed with a message from Uncle Raymond. Your parents are moving in with me for a while. Just thought you should know. This is pretty brutal, Audrey. I typed back, they're welcome to stay with you as long as they need to. Just make sure they contribute to expenses. The closing was scheduled for December 22nd. A week before, my father made one last attempt. He showed up at my office, somehow got past security, probably charmed the receptionist with the same stories about his daughter having a breakdown. My assistant looked apologetic as she let him into my office. 5 minutes, I told her. Then security. My father sat across from my desk, and I was struck by how old he looked. When had he gotten so gray? So tired? I'm not here to beg, he said. I'm here to offer you a deal. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening. We'll pay you back every penny. The $136,800 plus interest. We'll set up a payment plan. $500 a month until it's done. I pulled up a calculator on my computer. $136,800 at $500 a month is 273.6 months. That's 22.8 years. You'd be 78 years old when you finished paying me back. Then we'll pay more. With what money? You can't afford rent in Oak Park, but you can afford $500 a month to me? The math doesn't work, Dad. Then what do you want? You have to want something. I looked at him for a long moment. I wanted to be part of the family. I wanted you to see me as a person, not a piggy bank. I wanted basic respect. But you couldn't give me that when it cost you nothing. So why would I believe you'd give me money when it cost you everything? I made a mistake. We all did. But you're punishing us. No, I'm not punishing you. I'm just stopping rewarding you. There's a difference. He stood up. You'll regret this. One day you'll want family, and we won't be there. You haven't been there for 3 years. I'll manage. He left. My assistant hovered in the doorway. You okay? Yeah. Can you make sure security doesn't let him up again? Already done. The closing was smooth. The buyers were thrilled. I walked out with a check for $461,000 after all fees. I'd lost $25,800 on the 3-year investment, but I'd gained something more valuable, distance. That evening, I got one final text from my mother. We're moved into Raymond's house. It's cramped. Trevor's sleeping on the couch. Your father isn't speaking to anyone. I hope you're happy. I stared at that message for a long time. Was I happy? Not exactly. But I was free, and that was better. I typed back, I hope you figure things out. Truly. But I'm not your solution anymore. You'll have to solve your own problems now. Then I blocked all their numbers. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a 2-bedroom in Lincoln Park with actual closet space and a dishwasher, when Lisa came over with wine. So, she said, pouring us both a glass. I ran into your mom at the grocery store. I hadn't spoken to my family since the closing. Hadn't unblocked their numbers. Hadn't reached out. The silence had been peaceful in a way I hadn't expected. How'd that go? Awkward. She tried to tell me you'd had a breakdown, but then she realized I knew the whole story. She asked me to talk to you. Said, your father's pride won't let him apologize, but they miss you. They miss my mortgage payments. That's what I figured. Lisa took a sip of wine. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. What you did wasn't cruel. It was just fair. Fair. I'd thought about that word a lot in the past 6 months. My career had taken off after the sale. Without the financial drain of the house, I'd been able to focus completely on work. I'd closed 3 major accounts and gotten promoted to director. My salary jumped to $125,000 a year. I'd taken my first vacation in 4 years, a week in Puerto Rico alone, where I read books and swam and didn't answer my phone. I'd started dating someone, a financial attorney named Marcus, who understood spreadsheets and boundaries and the difference between generosity and being used. My life, objectively, was better. But sometimes, late at night, I'd think about Thanksgiving dinners and Sunday brunches and the family I'd grown up believing would always be there. Then I'd remember sitting in my car outside my own house, watching them plan renovations without me, seeing myself cropped out of photos. Being removed from the chat. Do you ever regret it? Lisa asked, reading my expression. Selling the house? No, not once. What about the family stuff? I thought about that. Really considered it. I regret that it had to happen. I don't regret doing it. There's a difference. Through the grapevine, Lisa, mostly, I heard updates. My parents were still living with Uncle Raymond, who was apparently less tolerant of their financial chaos than I'd been. He'd put them on a strict budget and made them pay 1/3 of his utilities. Trevor had moved out after 2 months, finding a roommate situation with college friends. He'd sold the BMW and bought a used Honda. I heard he was actually saving money for the first time in his adult life. My father's real estate business was still struggling, but he'd taken a job with a larger firm for steady income. My mother had gone full-time at her design job. They were learning, slowly, to live within their means. None of them had tried to contact me after I'd blocked them. Pride, probably. Or maybe they'd finally understood that I wasn't coming back to save them. You know what's weird? I told Lisa. I thought I'd feel guilty or sad. But mostly, I just feel clear, like I can finally see my life without someone else's financial crisis clouding everything. That's called boundaries, Lisa said. Healthy people have them. Healthy people don't usually have to sell their family home to establish them. Healthy families don't usually force their daughter to sell her own house to escape them. Fair point. My phone buzzed with an email. My financial advisor confirming my new investment account. I'd put $300,000 from the house sale into a diversified portfolio. The rest had gone to paying off my student loans completely, buying a reliable car, and furnishing my new apartment. For the first time since college, I had no debt, no obligations, no invisible family members draining my account. What if they apologized someday? Lisa asked. Would you let them back in? I considered that. Really considered it. Maybe, but not for a long time and never in the same way. I paid for 3 years of their lives, and they couldn't even keep me in a group chat. That's not something you come back from easily. You're allowed to be unforgiving, you know. Not everything deserves forgiveness. That's what Marcus says. Smart man. Keep him. I smiled. I intend to. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I opened my blocked contacts list. My parents' numbers were still there. Trevor's too. I could unblock them, reach out, build a bridge. But bridges go two ways, and I'd spent 3 years being the only one building. Instead, I deleted their contacts entirely. Not blocked, just gone. If they wanted to reach me, they'd have to work for it. Find my new address, show up, apologize, actually change. I wasn't holding my breath. My computer dinged with a notification. My investment account had earned $847 in interest this month. Money making money. Instead of money disappearing into someone else's mortgage, I opened my banking app and looked at my balance. Healthy. Growing. Mine. For the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep without checking whether I'd remembered to pay someone else's bills. The family I'd been born into had removed me from their chat, so I'd removed them from my life. We'd both gotten exactly what we'd chosen. The only difference was I was happier with my choice.